one. It's deployed on staging. If any of you wants to try it out, I've not tried it with many users, but it's staging.agorapp.dev. So the main problems in the industry: developer adoption, developer tooling, and recruiting. What do I mean by that? By developer adoption, I mean we have a lot of great technologies here. However, there is a lack of developers in the space. Why is there a lack of developers in the space? I would say that it's partially connected to developer tooling, meaning that I think we have all experienced it this week with funC, that it's not so fun to set up a local environment for your funC programming language, or in general for Web3 programming languages. That's probably one of the main reasons why Ethereum is ahead of the space, because they provide a better developer tooling in order to set up your own environment, whether it is a Hardhat node or Foundry or a Truffle or OpenZeppelin. So the key to developer adoption is developer tooling. And it seems that it's a fairly popular topic, which is online IDEs. Online IDs are probably one of the best tools to actually increase the developer adoption of your own of a blockchain, because you don't need to set up your own environment and you can actually learn a programming language in an interactive way. Who here, by show of hands, has ever tried Codecademy? Codecademy? Yeah, not so many. I would suggest to try it out. It's a very good place where you can learn about Web2 programming language in an interactive way. You test your practice against a set of challenges, and you test your coding knowledge. Now, what here we are trying to do, by the way, interesting styling. I've never tried it with as a large screen. Anyhow, so for tone. I don't know how much have you practiced funC so far, but the challenge that I have on the staging environment right now, it's basically about making a very basic counter. So you have a state variable, which is a store in the storage, which is if you've been reading about the funC documentation, it's the place where the data is persisted. Then you have messages, which is a way you make stateful interactions with the funC, and finally, you have a getter, which is basically a read-only function that allows you to fetch data from your contract. Now, I would encourage you to try to do it on your own. I did for the past 8 hours, and it wasn't easy, but so learn by doing. This is the solution. We are just going to try to run it in an interactive way right now. Let's pray that we are going. Oh. Yes. Oh, amazing. Thank you. So, sorry. Let's run it. Let's run it again. I'm sure there are more people who are more experienced in funC than I am, but it's basically satisfying the unit test that we have on the back, that we are running on the background on the underlying infrastructure. However, let's say if I change the code here in a way that is not summing up the expected input, because basically this counter is just expecting that it's going to take a user input and then sum it to a state variable. So it's you have a state variable that is n0, you pass 3, and it's going to add it, and this should fail. Now, I think this is a fairly good way to get immediate immediate feedback on whether your actual understanding of the syntax of a programming language is correct. I'm going to implement NFTs that are going to certify the challenges that you have solved. There will be algorithms with an increasing level of difficulties. Now, initially I mentioned the recruiting part. How does it work? Honestly, HR as a developer is a fairly terrible process. Why is it a terrible process? Because usually HR people are not particularly technical, which is why they usually try to leverage the expertise of other developers, which makes the recruiting process fairly lengthy. What I would like to do is to provide an on-chain resume, and it will be with native tone NFTs that basically certifies your skills as a developer. I want to expand this environment from just being for smart contract to full stack dApps. So I will implement Git pods or GitHub code spaces, if anyone is familiar, that allow you to run a full VS Code on the cloud. And basically want to provide an online IDE that will have an increasing level of features that are going to be provided to the developer to run your contracts, deploy your contracts in a programmatic way. So learn and also prototype faster. And that's basically the goal. If anyone was paying attention to the landing page, you might have noticed that there is also an EVM environment with Solidity. Yes, so it's not going to be just tone focused, but it's not because I'm not particularly enthusiastic about tone. I guess I am, absolutely, but it's because developers are not in a bubble. So for instance, I come from the Ethereum space. If you want to appeal to talent, you're not going to appeal to a talent pool that is just coming out of nowhere. You're going to appeal to a talent pool that has already experience from in another ecosystem. And in order to do that, you needed to provide a cross-chain environment that can connect Web3 developers from the Ethereum space, Web3 developers from the Solana space in the same application. So the idea is to provide a fully cross-chain online IDE. And this is just the first step towards that goal. Any questions? Yes.
Why cross-platform?
Well, cross-platform in the sense that right now we are supporting the EVM execution environment. Yes.
One more question. I understood that you're talking JavaScript. One code is written in Rust. Where is the cross-platform?
Sorry?
How is cross-platform?
By cross-platform, I mean cross-execution environment. So if you go to Introduction to Solidity, now here you will be able to let's say this is a very basic challenge to declare. All right, nice, crashing. So not cross-platform currently, but it actually is. But anyway, there is a bug. But anyway, this is running an EVM in the background. So if you write Solidity, you're going to write Solidity against the EVM. When you're going to write funC, you're not going to run your contracts against the EVM. You're going to run your contracts. They're going to be compiled and they're going to run against the Ton virtual machine. So it's cross-platform in the sense that we are supporting different virtual machines that are running on top of different blockchains.
How do you feel about Rust?
I feel great about Rust. I really like it. Yes.
So I like your idea. Just getting into Ton and funC is really hard. I'm a bit skeptical about the on-chain resume part because it seems like it's just gonna be too simple to forge. Like one person is going to solve it and basically would be able to sell solutions, or just make some automatic resume bump up. So someone could come to me, just hey, can you bump up me on chain, and I will like resubmit my solutions from.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. So, so one of the ways I was thinking to kind of tackle it is, okay, I mentioned that we will issue NFTs for the completion of a specific course or challenge, but I would like to restrict that as like having live coding challenges, or something more like, I don't know if you're familiar, like within Unify or Codearena, which are, let's say, Web3 auditing platform to crowdsource auditing, usually for the Ethereum space. So it's usually like challenges that are not really repeatable. So what I think would be more difficult to forge is if we provide live challenges, let's say, at a certain amount of, similar to a hackathon. It's going to take place this day, between Friday and Sunday. You need to implement, I don't know, some fancy algorithm in funC, or write a linked list in funC, or something similar. So I mean, it's definitely a problem, but I think that once we reach a good enough user base, there are ways to tackle it, I guess. But I welcome your feedback. Thank you.
There's no question?
No. Thank you.